Well, hello again. Welcome to Horror in Detail. Today we are going to share creepy Wendigo horror stories. First story. This story was shared by you/L1Quaint. My friends and I think we were being hunted by a Wendigo. Whole story takes place on an 8-mile stretch of road in Hamlin, New York. I was 16 years old and went on a fishing trip with my 4 friends. Brian, Mike, Ethan and Joe. The fishing spot was under a bridge 1.5 miles away from any houses. The day started out fun, everybody was excited to go fishing and smoke, and the walk to the spot went well. There were squash fields littering the sides of the main road, so we snagged a few and continued on, also grabbing corn. We get to the spot and fish for a few hours until it was 9:30 p.m. This is where shit pops off. But before I say anything else, I want to recognize that my friend Brian is a descendant of the Navajo tribe and believes in druid stuff. I'm an atheist. We start to hear dogs barking in the distance, like a wild pack of dogs, but the chances of that being a thing are low, so we consider coyotes. We soon realize that coyotes don't bark, they yip, so that's out the window. We're all a little bit paranoid at this point, so we come to the conclusion that walking back the 8 miles and downing a bottle of rum at Brian's house was a good idea. A quarter way back my friend Brian stops dead in his tracks in the middle of the road. The expression on his face changed from concern to the look of fear. I walked up to him wondering what was up, and he grabbed me by the wrist and pointed my hand out into the fields, and all I could see looking back at me, it was a pair of eyes the size of footballs. Me and Brian agree silently to keep it between us two as to not freak everybody out and end up getting split up, so we just kind of pick up the pace so everybody is forced to follow at our speed. Halfway back to Brian's house we pass a white farmhouse with a cornfield across from it. Next thing I know, it feels like a plane buzzed by and there's about a 40-yard trail crashing through the corn. Oh, and all while this is happening we hear the fucking dogs following us. As we return at Brian's house and pull out the 12 gauge and a bottle of rum and sit on his porch, we are the same dogs from earlier start whining off in the distance like they were upset at us. I then proceeded to have night terrors while drunk at my buddy's house, lol. Second story. This story was shared by you/consistent_nail6810. In my house, just for one night. I had a ghost in the house one night. Just one night. At the time, I lived alone. Still do, still in the same house. I was 35 and had been living in my home for about 2 or 3 years, nothing out of the ordinary in those years. One night, I was reading in bed. It was an average-sized bedroom and my bed faced the door, which was open. I had no pets at the time and no reason to close the bedroom door. I read most nights before bed, so I was sitting up in bed, light on, reading. For some reason, I had the creepy feeling I was being watched. I couldn't get over it. I'd be studying the words, trying to immerse myself in the story, but I could not get over the feeling I was being watched. I kept looking up. I peered into the main area of the house, all dark, all lights out, nothing. No noise. No light. I locked the front and back doors just like I did every night. I live in Minneapolis, so this was not some remote, isolated town. I could not read my book. That feeling of being watched or stared at kept growing and growing. Ever watch TV with someone and they're just staring at you while you stare at the TV? You don't even need to turn to them because you can feel their eyes on you. Funny thing is, I didn't feel threatened, not exactly. I didn't like the sensation. It was completely creeping me out, but I didn't feel like I was going to be attacked. I tried shaking it off, but I couldn't read. So I turned off the light and tried to sleep, but that just made the sensation worse. The thing watching me never felt like it was in my bedroom, always just beyond the bedroom door in the darkness of the rest of the house. After a few minutes of this intense feeling, I knew I couldn't fall asleep. I realized I had to do what I had to do, make sure there was nobody in the house. What if this was some survival instinct and there was a person hiding in my home who I was ignoring? This was pre-cell phones, or I promise you, I would have texted a friend to come over right away. I could have called someone, I guess, but I did something more stupid. Got up. Turned on the lights in the dining room. Nobody there. Went back to bed laughing at myself for being ridiculous. Turned out the light. Immediately, the sensation was back and equally as strong. I was being watched. I tried to ignore it, I really did. Nope. Not gonna happen. Got up. Turned on the lights. I got my softball bat and I walked the entire house. I think this is the bravest/stupidest thing I've ever done in my entire life. I went into every room and turned on every light. I knew I wouldn't sleep if I didn't check every single closet, every person-sized cubbyhole. I went into the basement. I looked behind the basement stairs. I double-checked the front and back doors. Both were locked. All windows were secured. My upstairs wasn't finished at the time, under renovations, but I went up there and looked in every nook and cranny. Probably a full hour had passed since I started noticing the sensation, reading in bed. If someone were hiding in my house and meant me harm, I seriously doubt a chunky 35-year-old with an aluminum bat would have done much harm, so that was dumb of me. But I felt very confident I was alone in the house. This was my mind playing tricks on me. The house was empty. I was now 100% sure. I went back to my bedroom, all the lights in the house off except the bedside light. I was still rattled, freaked out that I thought walking the house was necessary in the first place. I mean, who does that? I laughed at myself for freaking out. I started reading for a while. Then, it was back. I was being watched. It was at this point I started to pay greater attention to the being watched feeling. Did I feel in danger? No. Did I feel an evil spirit? No, not exactly. I didn't like this feeling at all, not one bit. But I didn't feel like it was whispering, kill, 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 under its hellbreath either. It also felt, and the hair is going up on my neck as I type this, intentional. It was a presence and it wanted me to know it was a presence. It wasn't trying to scare me, but it was trying to communicate its presence. I called out to the dark living room, I don't want you here. Please go away. Nothing changed. I yelled other phrases, like, I don't know what you want, and even, go into the light. I got that from the Poltergeist movie, the original one. This now strikes me as a dumb thing to yell, but I didn't know what else to do. I can't say I believed in ghosts, but I also can't say I didn't. I have had weird freaky things happen in life, but nothing like this. I was being watched. Okay, I said to myself, fine. No sleep tonight. I read my book to the best of my ability, knowing there was no one in the house with me. I woke up in the morning with the bedroom light on and the book on my chest. The last time I looked at the clock was around 4 a.m. In the morning, my eyes burned since I had barely slept and I felt hungover. Exhausted from tension. The feeling of being watched was also gone. I walked around the house and it felt like it did every day, just normal. I called in sick to work and slept until noon. Since I had the day off, that afternoon I did house projects. I was in the middle of cleaning out a filing cabinet, throwing out old papers and making room for new stuff when my phone rang. I was sitting on the floor, papers all around me. The woman said, "Is this Eddie?" I confirmed. I didn't recognize her voice. This was way before constant telemarketers calling. If this happened today, I would have just hung up rather than answering. She said, I'm a friend of Richard. I am very sorry to tell you that he died yesterday afternoon after a lingering illness. You were one of the friends he wanted notified. Richard and I had been friends in college. He had once expressed he had deep romantic feelings for me, but I did not return them. We stayed friends but eventually drifted apart, partially due to his clubbing lifestyle. He wanted flashy clothes and jewelry, and I wanted to garden and read books. No drama. Just some friends you don't keep up with. But he was a good man and we had several years of a really nice friendship. I hadn't been in touch since I moved to Minneapolis. I was a little surprised I was on his call list, actually. The minute she said he had died I knew that it was Richard in my home the previous night. I knew it. It all made perfect sense. The idea of being watched, of it not being dangerous but just a presence, as if he wanted me to know he was there. It was an intensity without malice. Richard said goodbye. I've never felt anything like that in the house ever again. Third story. This story was shared by you/Anna0816. What happened to us in our apartment complex? For a very long time now my family and I have wondered exactly what happened to us in our apartment we shared for roughly a year and a half. We can't decide between haunting, frogging or just an unfortunate series of events. If you have any ideas let us know. We have only ever spoken about this, so it will be the first post regarding everything. My mom, my sister and I moved into an apartment in a Houston suburb in 2016. In each building there are 8 units. 4 on bottom and 4 on top, they were sliced in half, think long ways they were 3 beds, so that on each side the entrance opened to the bottom 2 and top 2 apartments. We were in the top right apartment. The maintenance man lived on the same half as us, but he was the bottom unit on the left side, diagonal from ours. The following are 2 occurrences that happened while we were living at the apartment complex. I would love some ideas on something normal to explain all of this away. The banging. The first thing was just annoying really. We started to randomly hear a knocking sound. Even like a metronome. Sounded like someone was hitting a fist onto the wall at regular intervals. We took countless videos of this sound and were told many things. There is no one in the unit where you claim the sound is coming from. The maintenance man has not noted any noise. Without anyone coming forward or without more information there is nothing we can do. Fair enough honestly. It may be driving us insane figuring it out, but it was only noise at first, nothing crazy. Each time a tenant was in the next door apartment, did not share the door front but we shared a main wall in our units, the banging would stop. I think about 3 times the banging was very obviously coming from the master bedroom from the unit next to us. The units were mirrors of each other. My mom would wake to someone banging on that shared wall in the bedroom, loudly enough to wake my sister in the next room as well. She would get angry and bang on the wall back, but nothing seemed to work. The sound would continue regardless of what we did until it eventually just stopped. We were just told there was nothing to be done as the unit was empty. We have considered the neighbors getting freaky. It was too consistent and only happened when unit was empty. Dogs running. It didn't get louder and softer like a dog running down the hallway, also empty. Some kind of device that maybe moves on its own and gets caught hitting on something. If the unit was empty and this is what happened, then why did maintenance never hear if they are in the same building? It would have to be really loud if it didn't come from the shared wall. Something to note. There was a 30-day policy at the apartment. If you moved in you could break the lease within the first 30 days and there wasn't a penalty. Until we moved out, and even those people to our knowledge, not a single tenant made it past the 30 days. We were always very curious as to why we always had new neighbors. The attic. As I mentioned before, the 4 top units have an attic space. The entrance is in the master bedroom closet. It does not have a pull-down string and staircase, the setup was a little different. When you open the door to the closet directly in front of you, like 3 feet deep, is a built-in shelf that doubles as a makeshift staircase to the attic, more like crawlspace. You can use the shelf as steps, and then there are shelves on each side of the closet, above the hanging bar, that you could use to steady yourself as you went up. That attic entrance was a square hole in the ceiling with a larger square board placed over it to cover the hole. To get in, you simply push the board up and move it over. On the outside of the master bedroom closet, the landlord had the trim and the door itself repainted white, landlord special, you all know it. It was done poorly, and you could very easily see the old outlines/screw holes where on 3 different occasions, or 3 at one time, whatever you think is more plausible, a padlock was installed on the closet door. We're talking a square indention on the door frame with 4 screw holes in it and a matching square indention and holes a couple inches over on the door too. I would love to know what could be kept in or out of that closet with those locks. Our guess is keeping something or someone from coming down from that crawl space. The best part? All 4 attic spaces are connected. This was confirmed by the front office that you can crawl up through the closet of one unit and down through any of the 4 top units in that building. No, we have no idea how this was legal or allowed. One night my sister and mom were up talking in the living room at roughly 3 a.m. in the morning. They both wait tables and work nights, so this is the equivalent of roughly 11 p.m. for them. We had been having weird occurrences, but when they heard footsteps overhead, it was one of the final things that really made us leave. Who could possibly be walking around in the attic space at 3 a.m.? I can go on and on about weird stuff with the attic and the apartment. If I get any traction, maybe I'll keep going. This is the tip of the iceberg, honestly, with crazy shit that happened there. 4th story. This story was shared by you/Sleepless from Sundown. I'm a park ranger. I found a strange well in the forest. When the 3rd call came in, we knew we had a problem. They all described the same thing, a man in a black jacket following them at a distance as they hiked through the forest. The man didn't say anything. He had a hood pulled tight over his head. No one saw his face. All 3 sightings occurred up over the ridge to the west of the station. Someone had to go and take a look. Jim and I played a lightning game of rock, paper, scissors. It's like the man can read my mind. I clipped a radio to my belt and jumped in the truck. Hikers often report seeing something strange out in the forest. The dark spaces between the trees play tricks on the mind. That and the isolation. But 3 sightings within a week describing the exact same thing ruled out a simple case of imagination in overdrive. Someone was out there, the question was who and why. I rambled up the slope as far as the truck would take me and then jumped out. I still had to negotiate the worst part of the ridge. The slope gets steep in parts and is hell on your legs. It made me think. Why has someone been spotted way up here on 3 different days across the space of a week? No one lived up this way. It wasn't a place for folk on a daily walk. A pang of fear gripped my stomach. Should I have come alone? I crested the slope and reached for my radio, and then I saw him. A silhouette mingling with the shadows between the thin trunks of birch. He was the length of a football field from me. Black jacket and a hood. He half turned in my direction and took a step forwards. In a strange way it gave me comfort. If there were any nefarious reason for him to be out here, I'd have expected him to retreat into the woods. Even at this distance he couldn't fail to recognize my ranger uniform. As I came within a distance where I could call to him without yelling, I raised a hand in greeting. I strained to see his face, but a deep and dark shadow obscured his features. I opened my mouth to say hello, but before any sound came out, he turned and strode into the forest. I called after him, but he continued to thread his way through the trees. I skipped a few paces to bridge the gap between us. Within touching distance, I reached out and a strange sensation flowed through my fingertips. It felt like a controlled release of electricity, not painful, almost like a severe case of pins and needles. Before I could retract my hand, a brilliant light flooded my vision. I shut my eyes and covered them with my hands. Somehow the light shone through. I cried out and stopped dead in my tracks. And then the light was gone. I opened my eyes. I stood in a clearing. The sun streamed down through the gap in the trees. At the center of the clearing stood an old stone well, the walls extending up to about waist height above the ground. I had seen structures like this around town, relics of frontier times. That a well would be out here in the middle of the forest, far from any settlement past or present, was baffling. The man in black stood behind the well and motioned me toward it. I approached the well, adrenaline sending my heart into a frenzy. Why had he led me out here? The sun warmed my shoulders from above. Despite the bright sunshine, the man's face remained shrouded in shadow. He pointed to the well. I stopped a few paces short. Something about this wasn't right. Everything about this wasn't right. Did he mean to throw me down? A voice sounded in my head. It did not come via my ears but seemed to somehow feed directly into my brain. You must look. I watched the man suspiciously and inched closer to the well. The mortar between the stones crumbled and moss stained the outside face green. This well was old. I saw something strange on the inside face. Writing. Something carved into the stone. It read, "Truth lies at the bottom of a well." What truth? I peered down. The shaft was deeper than I expected. Black shadows shrouded the walls at the base. All was dark except a sliver of light reflecting off the water sitting at the bottom. The reflection shimmered as if tiny waves swept over the water. I lowered my head and squinted. An image appeared in the bottom like a movie projected onto a screen. The image sharpened and came into focus. The forest at night under a full moon. Mist mingled with the trees. I felt the cold. I did not imagine it, but felt it. My skin prickled and I shivered. A road snaked up through the forest. I recognized it. It is a few minutes north of the ranger station. A figure walked beside the road. He wore a black jacket, the hood pulled up over his head. It was the same man who led me out here. A set of headlights flickered through the trees and then came into focus. The man in black stuck out a thumb. The images cut to the inside of the car. For a moment a bottle of whiskey obscured the identity of the driver. When the bottle lowered it was Jim who appeared. Music blared from the radio. The revs on the dial pushed into the red. I turned away from the movie playing at the bottom of the well. This was madness. The man in black, the hitchhiker, pulled back his hood. His face was youthful and innocent, but there was something wrong. His skin wrinkled and pulled away from his eyes, revealing a ring of red around the perimeter. 2 black holes were where his nose should be. Blood poured from his mouth and a few teeth were missing. The temple on the right side was caved in. I took a step back and cried out. I almost turned to run, but the hitchhiker held up his palms. He pointed down the well. I hesitated. The words repeated in my brain. You must look. My legs were jelly. My mind was torn. Part of me wanted to run and get as far away as possible, and the other part wanted to see what was down at the bottom of that well. I stepped forwards and looked down. The projection at the bottom of the well resumed. The bottle of whiskey slipped from Jim's grasp. One hand pulled and pushed the steering wheel as the other fumbled at his feet for the bottle. The truck drifted and then overcorrected. The man in black, stood by the side of the road with his thumb outstretched, had no chance. The truck skidded to a stop. Jim breathed rapidly from behind the wheel. He searched the rear vision mirror and found a black lump at the side of the road. He turned to confirm what the mirror told him. He put the truck in gear and drove. He rounded the next bend and stopped. The road was quiet. He killed the headlights and reversed. Under the pale light of the moon, Jim dragged the hitchhiker off the side of the road and into the forest. He came to a gully and tumbled down the bank. Jim scrambled back up the slope and pulled the hitchhiker down. Jim paused for a moment at the bottom, watching the face of the hitchhiker, before setting to work covering the body with branches and leaves. The moon grew and brightened until the light forced me to close my eyes. When I opened them, I was back in the forest. The clearing and the well and the man in the black jacket were gone. I walked back to my truck. I sat there for 15 minutes before starting the engine and driving back. I searched the parking lot for Jim's truck. It wasn't there. Jim narrowed his eyes when he saw me. I didn't blame him. I was white as a sheet and knew it. He asked me what I saw, and I told him nothing. I stammered a question about his truck. He paused and licked his lips and told me it was in the shop. I told 2 lies the following morning. The first was to our boss. I told him we'd had another call about a man in a black jacket and that Jim and I would take a look. The second was to Jim. I told him we had a report of a tree down on a walking trail and we had to go clear it up. We got in the truck. I took the road I saw in the vision at the bottom of the well. I knew the curve. When you take a road every day you get to know it almost to a point you could drive it with your eyes closed. I stopped right at the spot where Jim had smashed into the hitchhiker. Jim looked over at me confused. Which walking trail were we going to? His hands shook. I got out of the truck and instructed him to follow. We were taking a shortcut. I had to see it for myself. If what I had seen in the well was the truth, then the boy might still be there in the gully where Jim left him. And I had to know if it was Jim, and the only way to do that was to have him there. To see the look on his face. To see it in his eyes that it was him. Jim fell behind and I barked at him to keep up. We were almost at the gully. I turned back and Jim had stopped. He implored me to turn back. I kept going. The gully fell away below my feet. At the bottom, partially hidden below a stack of branches, was a figure wearing black. I shouted back to Jim. I told him something was down there. He begged me to stop. I unclipped the radio from my belt and called it in. Jim's shoulders fell. He ran a hand through his hair. He searched the slivers of sky visible through the trees for answers. For a split second his mouth turned downwards like a child about to cry. I had him. But a moment later all fear left his face. He sighed. He strode confidently to the crest of the gully and looked down. He told me I was right and that there was something down there. I searched his eyes. I looked for guilt. I saw only Jim, the guy who worked at the desk on the other side of the partition. How could he be so calm? How could he not break down and confess? The police came and retrieved the body. They identified the hitchhiker. An 18-year-old runaway escaping an abusive father. 2 officers interviewed me in a small room. I told them we had found the body by accident. They found it strange we had reports of a man matching the hitchhiker's description from the last week. I agreed, but I could not explain it. There was no way I could tell them about the well and what I saw in the bottom. I only told them that I thought it was strange that Jim suddenly didn't have his truck. This produced furrowed brows. I only repeated that I wanted them to look into it. Whether the police investigated or not I cannot say. Jim's truck never resurfaced. He says he sold it. The death was classified as an accident and no suspect or witness was ever identified. I know the truth and so does Jim. But I can't prove it. I still sit at the desk on the other side of the partition. If it plays on Jim's mind, he never gives anything away. One night I left a note in his letterbox that said, "I know it was you." He has never mentioned it. I see the hitchhiker in my dreams. The headlights from Jim's car lighting his face in the last moments of his life. There is nothing I can do for him. Sometimes, I go out to the forest and search for the well. I have not seen it since. Sometimes the truth lies just out of reach, and sometimes it seems so far away it could be down at the bottom of a well. Fifth story. This story was shared by you/embarrassed_disc 5811. My father told me to never whistle while hunting. Today I found out why. I am a 27-year-old man, Dustin, and I've been living in northern Canada my whole life. With this, it means I have been hunting many times throughout my years. I've been hunting since I was able to walk. Sure, it gets repetitive, but there's something about it I've always enjoyed. It may be the thrill of finding an animal I've hunted myself or just the thought of me being able to get out of the city and have some time to myself, but whatever it is, it keeps bringing me back to the sport. I have a girlfriend who I've been with for the past 5 years who's never really enjoyed the thought of me killing innocent animals, but she never held it against me as her father was a hunter himself. One thing she does dislike is when I go out on my own, as she fears for my safety as there are many bears around my land. Although she feels nervous about it, I always assure her I will be okay and she does not need to worry about me. It was the same tonight. As I got ready to start my drive to the country, my girlfriend had asked me to be safe and to go drop a gift off at my father's house for his birthday. We had not been able to attend. This was not a problem for me as he had lived on the edge of town towards where I would be going. I had told my girlfriend I loved her and then made my way to drop the gift off. Once I'd made it to my dad's house, I had given him his gift and began to talk with him for a little bit. During our conversation, I had brought up that I was going hunting, which had instantly made my dad's expression change. As he looked at me, he said, "Do you remember the rule?" I replied with some anger, "Yes, I know to never whistle while hunting." My father apologized for telling me all the time and said he just wanted to keep me safe. I had asked him many times why I couldn't whistle, but he always said to listen to him and not ask questions, which made me stay quiet this time. He wished me luck and I went on my way, beginning the drive through the countryside. As I was driving the way, my dad's face changed when I told him I would be hunting. Stuck in the back of my mind with an uneasy feeling, I thought nothing of it once I had arrived at the approach into my field. As I got out of the truck, I saw down the road in the ditch there had been a truck seemingly left abandoned. This was odd to me, as there is no civilization close to here for someone to leave their truck. I brushed it off as someone just driving off the road while texting or not paying attention. As I made my way through my field, it felt unnaturally quiet. Usually a bird was chirping or the rustling of the trees blowing with the wind, but today there was nothing but complete silence. As I reached my hunting blind on the other side of the field, I had sat down and began to wait. While waiting, I decided to text my girlfriend that I had made it safe and that I had dropped off the gift. Looking down at my phone, I saw I had no service. Weird, I thought to myself. I had at least one bar here all the time, which was just enough to get a message through. As I was looking at my phone, I looked up and realized a deer was making its way towards my bait. I had gotten ready with my rifle as the deer approached. Once it had stopped moving, I took the chance to shoot and hit it perfectly, dropping it right where it had been standing. In celebration, I stood up and ran over to see my kill and put the tags on. After that was finished, I made my way back over to the truck. As I was walking, the darkness approached and the silence of my surroundings made me feel uneasy. I had decided to ignore my dad's silly rule and started whistling, as I didn't have to worry about scaring anything away anymore. I continued humming until I hopped into the truck driving back to where I had shot the animal. Once I reached the spot, I couldn't see it anywhere. This worried me, as I thought the deer had not been dead and it had escaped. I was proved right when I saw a trail of blood leading into an unseen part of my field. As I drove around the trees into this little unseen part, my heart sank. In front of me was my deer, but wrapped around it was a large mouth with teeth so sharp they could bite the thing in half. I looked in horror as this thing, which had to have been at least 10 feet tall, ate my deer and then stared directly at my truck. This was my sign to get the fuck out of there, and with that I slammed my truck into drive and whipped it around to drive out of there. I didn't want to look back in fear of what I was going to see. Right before I made it to the end of my field, I felt my back tire get jerked, which I can only assume was sliced open by that thing's claws or teeth. This had sent my truck rolling onto the roof deep into the bush. This had ripped my leg open and I am bleeding very bad. I had then left and hid behind a tree. I am writing this as I hear screeching and bushes being pushed over, hoping I stay hidden long enough for someone else to come and scare it away. I don't know if this will even publish, but it's the only way I may survive. If you see this, please help, because if I don't bleed out soon, this thing will find me. Sixth story. This story was shared by you/HorrorJunkie123. My boyfriend has always hated my cats. I should have dumped him sooner. My boyfriend, Eric, has always vehemently hated my cats, Stella and Biscuit. I wish I could say that they've never given him a reason to, but honestly, I can't. They're perfect little angels around everyone except for him. I should have taken that as a red flag. Eric and I started dating around 3 months ago. He seemed like a genuinely good person. But I've recently come to learn that he's anything but genuine. The issues didn't start until a month ago. We were at my house getting ready to leave for date night when I heard it. Biscuit was emitting a low growl from the opposite room. I've had that cat for 4 years and never once has he growled at anyone. I put down my curling iron and walked into the room just in time to see him swat my boyfriend's hand. Eric recoiled in pain, clutching his wounded appendage close to his chest. "Ah! That really hurt, you little bastard," he hissed, only provoking Biscuit further. "Babe, are you okay? What happened?" I just reached out to pet him, then Biscuit decided to play tetherball with my hand, Eric said through clenched teeth. I shot Biscuit a death glare. That got him to calm down. He glanced up at me with those heartbroken kitten eyes before darting behind the sofa. I hate it when he hits me with that look. I would appreciate it if you didn't call my cat names, but I'll let it slide because of this. Show me, I requested to my now teary-eyed boyfriend. He gazed up at me like a hurt puppy. Was he playing it up? Oh, 100%. But I still couldn't help feeling a pang of pity stab through my chest like an ice pick. "How's it look?" he asked, wincing as I gently wiped away some of the blood. "It's not bad at all. I'll get you a band-aid, then you should be right as rain." Kinda killed the vibe for date night, though, didn't it? He sheepishly nodded. "I thought so. We can get takeout instead." "My treat," I said as I rummaged through my medicine cabinet. Eric smiled warmly at me as I found what I was looking for. "Thanks, baby. You're the best." We spent the remainder of the evening cuddled up on the couch watching Netflix. All the while, Biscuit and Stella were nowhere to be found. That was odd. Usually, at least one of them would be curled up beside me. Other than that, nothing was out of the ordinary for the rest of the night. but I still couldn't help feeling uneasy. With how hectic my schedule had been, I didn't get a chance to spend time with Eric for another week afterward. That Saturday I found myself getting ready for my boyfriend to come over. Honestly, that was another blaring red flag that I decided to sweep under the rug. Eric had never invited me over to his place the entire time we'd been together. He'd get agitated whenever I brought it up, and it usually ended in a fight. I thought it was strange, but nothing that couldn't be explained away. Maybe his apartment was a mess. Maybe he was insecure about his choice of home decor. Or, maybe he just wasn't ready yet. As I would come to find out, none of those were correct. That evening, Eric had offered to cook for me. I had no clue that he even knew how, so when I laid eyes on the 4-cheese lasagna he'd prepared, I was in awe. "Babe, why didn't you tell me you were a 5-star chef? I mean shit, even Gordon Ramsay would want a piece of this." A smug grin crept across his face. He folded his arms across his chest and admired his handiwork. "I'm a man of many talents. Your boyfriend is a jack of all trades," he said, bowing dramatically. "Hey, presentation isn't everything. The taste test will be the determining factor," I replied, shooting him a wink. "Well, prepare to be amazed. Take a seat, milady. Dinner is served." "You're a cornball," I giggled as he pulled out a chair for me. Eric turned back to his masterpiece and began dishing out our servings. He grabbed the grated cheese and started pouring it on top. I couldn't see from my angle, but it seemed like he was taking a while with it. Maybe he was struggling to get the top off. "Babe, do you need help?" I asked, rising from my seat. "I can dash." No, I've got it. Just sit back down." Something about the way he said that unnerved me. Eric had never snapped at me like that. Was my boyfriend hiding something from me? "Here you are, my queen," Eric said, placing a plate before me. I glanced at his food. Mine had a lot more grated Parmesan than his. Something didn't feel right, but I tried my best to brush it off as I raised a forkful of steaming lasagna to my mouth. Before I could eat it, however, a flash of black fur darted in front of me. It was Stella. She swatted the fork from my hand before it touched my lips, then swept her tail across the top of my food. The fuck? Did my cat just bitch slap the food out of my hand then rub her hairy tail all over my plate? I was about to order Stella to get down from the table when I noticed that she had her hackles raised. She was hissing at my boyfriend and swatting the air. She was trying to protect me. But why? "Shoo, Stella, it's okay girl," I whispered, lightly caressing her back. I eventually calmed her down, but she didn't take her eyes off of Eric the entire time. The pair were trapped in a fierce staring match, and my cat was not going down without a fight. I cleaned Stella's tail, then rose to chuck the ruined food and prepare myself a new plate. Eric had made more than enough, and he'd eaten some of his, so I was confident that it would be safe to consume. "Oh, let me get that for you," Eric said, standing from his chair as I headed for the lasagna. "No. I'll get it," I hissed as he slumped back into his seat. Eric was pouty for the rest of the meal. He looked like a child who was told he was getting coal for Christmas. Something fishy was going on, and I was determined to get to the bottom of it. Things were fine between us for the next couple weeks. Eric took me out on dates, bought me flowers, and did all the things that a sincere, loving boyfriend should do. I'd been suspicious of him, but I'd be lying if I said he wasn't breaking down my walls. If that was all an act, it was a damn good one. I let Eric spend the night for the first time a week ago. He was, understandably, ecstatic. I know most couples hit that milestone before they even start dating, but I like to really be comfortable with someone before I let them sleep in the same bed as me, you know. Thanks for letting me stay over, babe. It's nice to finally fall asleep with you in my arms. I'm not gonna lie, it does feel nice, I said, scooting closer. Eric's eyes were getting heavy. He yawned, then whispered in his sleepy voice that I had come to adore, I love you, Lindsay. My cheeks burned red as a fire engine. He'd never said that to me before. As the shock wore off, I began to realize that I felt the same way. I love you too, Eric, I murmured as we both shut our eyes and drifted off to sleep. I awoke to a shriek in the middle of the night. Eric was sitting upright and I felt something heavy drop onto the blanket over my abdomen. As my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I quickly realized what it was, a steak knife. Eric was wrestling with a beige ball of fur. I didn't waste any time. I snatched up the knife, threw off the covers, and leapt from bed. With teary eyes, I pointed the weapon at Eric, who was desperately trying to free his arm from Biscuit's death grip. Biscuit, see, come here, I muttered, my voice trembling. He instantly released Eric once he heard my voice. Biscuit scampered over to me, out of Eric's reach. Get out. Get the fuck out. I shouted, tears streaming down my cheeks. My now ex-boyfriend looked like he was about to cry. That infuriated me. He wasn't allowed to cry. Not after what he was going to do. Baby, please, I can explain. No. There's nothing to say. You were either going to stab me or my cats, and whichever it was, that is unacceptable. Get out of my house. Eric opened his mouth, trying to find the right words, but none came. His head hung low as he reluctantly gathered his things. It was taking all of my mental fortitude to hold it together. Once Eric was fully dressed, he shuffled away. He paused as he reached the front door and turned to face me. Are you sure that there's nothing I can say to change your mind? The knife shook in my grasp. You're sick. I don't ever want to see your face again. He didn't respond. He simply walked out into the night, leaving me a trembling mess in my living room. Something inside of me broke. I curled into a ball on my doormat as the shock hit me like a freight train. The man I loved had turned out to be a complete psychopath. How could I be so stupid? I sobbed for what felt like hours. Only when I had no tears left to cry did I realize what I needed to do. I called the police. The cops in my town are decent people. My cousin was on the force, so I knew they wouldn't blow me off. The police took my information and opened an investigation on Eric, but they never found him. Despite all the evidence I provided, there was no indication that Eric had ever existed. I got a sinking feeling in my gut when the realization dawned on me. The shady antics, never inviting me over, the secretive behavior throughout our entire relationship. He was like a ghost. And that's exactly what he wanted. Now, I'm terrified. I've gathered up the essentials and the cats are in their carriers in the back seat. I'm making the 4-hour drive to my parents' house. Because when I got home from work today, I found something that nearly caused me to pass out. When I walked in my living room, there was a note sitting on my coffee table. Along with it, a copy of my house key and a bullet. My hands quivered as I picked up the letter. My heart plummeted to my toes when I read what was written on the crumpled paper. Hey baby. I can't wait to see you for date night. I have a killer outing planned. Your loving boyfriend, Eric. I'm still shaking. I don't know how long he's had that key. The thing is, I live alone, and I've never given him a spare. I shouldn't have trusted him, but hindsight is 20/20. Please, I'm begging you. Listen to your pets. They just might save your life. 7th story. This story was shared by you/the Files. We still don't know what we found in the river. I don't do a lot of camping. My friend Jack is the complete opposite. He's the adventurous type. Mountain climbing, camping, rowing, you name it, the guy has done it. He likes to be close to nature, and I don't know anybody who could blame him. It's beautiful when you're out there. I just would rather do anything else than go out into nature. I live a sheltered life. I got a nice house in a protected suburb, a cushy job as an assistant manager, and my favorite hobby is falling asleep by the pool listening to 80s hits. The only real stress I have in my life comes from my family. Almost every day I get a call from one asking for a lift, or money, or to borrow something of mine I know they won't return, and if they do it won't be in one piece. I wouldn't mind it if they were the kind of family that respected me and showed appreciation, but they almost always demanded that I do something and insulted me when I failed to deliver. But it was family and it became a routine for me. I only bring this up because I need you to understand my frame of mind before I went with Jack. I work with this clunky software where if you mess anything up, it screws the whole project. It's also slow as hell, so it was already a rough day. When I was at my most frustrated, I received a ping on my phone. It was my family, more specifically my aunt, who was giving me hell for some bullshit her son did. The incredible mental gymnastics she had to do to end up blaming me was just that, incredible. By the end of the day, I was toasted. My brain was this swirling gray mass of mushroom soup. I was driving home thinking about how I had to go through it again the next day when the Bluetooth car phone started ringing. Jack was calling. "Hey, man," I sighed over the phone. "I just got secondhand depression from that sigh," Jack told me. "What the hell happened?" I went on a little rant. I kept it brief because I didn't want to bore him with my problems. The summary was enough anyway. "You know what you need, a vacation," Jack said. "The weekend is almost here. I will chill out then. I mean a real vacation. An escape from an asshole family and work you've hated since day one. You're not going to get any less stressed by staring at a TV or wandering through the same concrete neighborhoods. Your pep makes me want to hug the corner of that building with my car. I'm serious. You've got vacation days, use them after times like this. Escape, man. I know just the place." And 5 minutes later, Jack convinced me to go camping with him. I called my boss to inform him that I was taking a couple of vacation days and set myself up for a 4-day weekend in the forest. "Jack, we've been walking for an hour," I told him. "How much longer do we have to carry a tent and a small kitchen before we get there?" "It would go a lot faster if you didn't count every minute," he said over his shoulder. He brushed his long brown hair out of his face. I was glad to see that he was sweating as well. The guy may have been fit, but he was still human. He must have seen my smile or heard my soft chuckle because he looked at me. When our eyes met, he knew what I was smiling about. We both wheezed our little laughs and took a breather. The spot he was talking about didn't seem so special. There were a lot of trees and dead orange leaves, but very few bushes and low-hanging branches. I asked him what was so great about it, but he just told me to help him set up the tent. It took as long as I expected to get the tent up and make a fire, too long. It was dark and we were staring at a pot of soup cooking over the flames. Jack was wearing this big grin on his face while he looked at the fire. My eyes kept darting to the trees and looking beyond them. The dark blue finally settled into pitch black and it felt like we were sitting in a windy void. I heard a distant chittering of something. A bird? Some kind of bug. "Soup's up," Jack said suddenly. My heart skipped. You got the rolls. Yeah, they're a little squished though. That thermos was heavier than I thought. Just how I like 'em. Hey, Jack, what was that sound just now? Squirrel. There are also a few bats in this region, so if you hear squeaking or something flying a little close to the tent, well, it's probably that. Jack was the first to fall asleep. I stayed up, despite my best efforts, trying to gauge how far away certain sounds were and what they belonged to. I wasn't scared, but it was a different experience for me. I don't know, some things you linger on more than others when recalling memories, and those sounds were one of them. In the morning, I woke up to the smell of bacon and eggs. When I did fall asleep, I slept like a rock. Looking at my phone, I saw it was almost 8 a.m. Warm light poured into the tent, and when I stepped out, my breath was taken away. The orange of the leaves that covered the forest floor had turned into a golden carpet in the morning light. Even the shadows had this warm, rich orange to them. Holy shit, I whispered. I looked over at Jack. He was stirring a pan of scrambled eggs with a wooden spoon. He didn't look anywhere near as happy as me, which on a trip designed for him, seemed unusual. I dropped my smile. What's up with you? This is amazing, I said, gesturing to the forest. It is, but I don't hear anything. Well, you can hear me. I mean, I don't hear any birds, insects, animals, nothing. Maybe they finally went to sleep, I grumbled. At least the birds should be up. They go crazy in the mornings. So, what are you worried about? What does that mean? Jack shrugged and looked at me. It was like he was trying to find the right words to say, but I knew that look better than most. It was usually the look my family gave me when delivering bad news, but this time it seemed genuine. There might be a predator in the area, he said. I looked all around. The spot had another plus, you could see farther without the hills and bushes. I didn't see anything, but I kept looking while I spoke to him. So, what's the plan? I asked. Pack up and slowly make our way back to the car, or do we run for it? Neither. It's probably passing through the area. We will know when we hear the birds again. Just keep your eyes open for now and eat your breakfast. I trusted him enough to take what he said as fact. I was also hungry enough to not care too much about a predator in the area, so I enjoyed my food. We ate in silence and just spent our time watching all around. It was only after I had eaten that I noticed how loud the silence really was. I couldn't hear more than a few creaks of bending trees. It was in that silence that my imagination had all the tools it needed to construct all sorts of possibilities. Bears, wolves, maybe a wild cat like a mountain lion. Those things blended in well, I knew that from the posters in the camping store. When your mind is devising a nightmare, your body can sometimes tense up without you knowing it. Mine tensed up in such a way that my breathing got weird. I looked at Jack. He was shaking a canteen, empty. We decided that sticking around was only making the feeling worse and that we would walk to the river instead. Even with my fear in my heart, or perhaps because of it, I was keen to get the hell out of the area. Whatever it was could rip our tent and stuff to pieces, I didn't care. As long as I wasn't in the sleeping bag that it shredded, I was happy. Don't we need to filter this water? I asked, dipping my hand into the ice-cold river. It's moving mountain water, Jack said. Isn't much in it that can harm you, and the filter built into the cap will take care of that for you. I was wondering why this bottle you made me buy was so damn expensive, I said. We heard birds and other animals, so we were pretty relaxed again. We were also banking on the idea that the predator would move on by the time we got back. We put a pin in it and just tried to enjoy the morning, discussing the possibility of fishing even though we didn't bring any fishing equipment. I had almost completely settled when I noticed something in the dark waters. It was pale with a cool hue thanks to the water. I didn't know what to make of it at first, cocking my head to the side as if the different angle would help me understand. The object twisted, and it was only when it had completely spread out and floated to the top of the waters that I realized it was a body. What the fuck? Jack saw it too. Did somebody drown? I asked, the cold feeling filling me. Is that person? I don't know, Jack said, immediately taking action and walking alongside the river after it. I followed close behind him. We sometimes looked at where we stepped, but that didn't stop us from stumbling as we saw the figure twist and turn with the water. There was something wrong with it. The person didn't wear any clothing and their body was deformed. It drifted close enough to the shore that Jack could reach one of the limbs. With a disgusted face, he grabbed an ankle and quickly pulled it, dragging the corpse onto the shore. He was quick to release it and wipe his hand on his jeans. The two of us looked down at it, mute and disturbed. The body itself was scrawny, but the head was slightly large. The fingers appeared normal at first, but the way they curled in on each other it was like it had far too many joints. As for the head itself, the eyes were 2 dots, the mouth no more than a slit. Not a single hair on its head either, making the flesh seem even more puffy. Jack, we need to call somebody, I told him. This guy has been in the water a long time. His flesh is waterlogged. Like, just his head. No, this guy isn't, I mean look at his. What? Between his legs. I couldn't see what he was talking about, but when I moved over to where he was standing, I saw something that definitely wasn't on any anatomy poster I saw in a doctor's office. I don't know how to describe, and quite frankly, I don't want to. I studied the face again and tried to comprehend how its nose could be so sunken, or the eyes so small, but when I decided that's just how it looked I realized what Jack realized. It wasn't human. The inky dots that were its eyes seemed fixed on the sky, its small mouth agape and unmoving. It looked sad, and we looked like a pair of fish staring at it. I don't know how many minutes of silence passed before we realized it was just that quiet. There weren't any birds or insects. By the time it finally registered, our thoughts were interrupted by the crunch of leaves under a large foot. Turning around, we saw a large brown bear lumbering from the tree lean towards the river. I don't think I ever realized how large bears could get. I guess I could only ever compare it to the mooses I saw in the Brother Bear movie, but I've never seen a moose either. It was huge. It had more muscle in one of its limbs than I had in my entire body. A walking, clawed tank. And it was looking right at us. Okay, easy now, Jack said, speaking half to the bear and half to me. Don't look it in the eyes. Do exactly as I say and we will be fine, okay? I nodded, then realized he couldn't see me nod, so I squeaked a yes. One paw was all it would take to crush me. Could I outrun a bear? Research after the encounter told me no, but it was definitely on my mind. Back away slowly, don't turn your back on it, Jack said in a calming tone. Say something, man. Talk to it calmly. I don't want to speak to it, I said, trying to match his tone. I'm barely keeping it together. Just keep backing away, you're doing fine. Stand tall, don't shrivel up now. We're in hot water, not cold. Fuck, man. We had backed up a significant distance. The bear itself had slowed down a lot. I tried to keep from looking at it directly, but whenever it looked away, I couldn't help myself. Bears have almost human-like lips. It had them pursed as if sighing, looking up towards the trees across the river. It didn't see us as a threat, and this thought was helping. I fed into it, whispering little things like, "It's going to be okay," and "Nothing to it, you're doing great." "Yes, you are, man," Jack said. "Now, let's just hang around here for a moment. See if it will leave us alone before we head back to camp." It wasn't something I wanted to do, but Jack took up a spot beside a tree and waited. I did the same, and we continued to watch the bear as it walked over to the pale corpse we found. It sniffed at it like a dog, and with bated breath, we watched as the inevitable happened. The bear leaned down and bit into the side of the creature. We saw the teeth dig into the skin, we saw inky blood. It was horrific, but it got so much worse when the creature started to yell and writhe in the bear's maw. It had this broken yell, much like a chirrup or buzzing insect. Its legs kicked out, and its hands flailed, but the bear didn't stop. It placed its paw on the creature's head, pinning it to the ground, and pulled. The flesh snapped like rubber when it was torn apart. The head was completely removed, the scream had ceased, yet the body continued to squirm. It clutched the bear's head, trying to pull open the jaw, but the bear continued. I felt sick to my stomach. Even when torn to pieces, parts of the creature still lived and acted as if they were still a part of one whole. The head itself was half pressed into the ground, the dark eyes unable to look anywhere except in our direction. The tiny mouth was moving, still screaming, but without anything to fuel it. "Let's get the fuck out of here," I said to Jack. Without a word, I turned around and left. Jack followed after. We made our way right back to camp, packed up, and began the walk back to the car. We encountered nothing more. No more bears or pale, human-like, things. We just drove home. Right now, I wish I could give you more, but at the same time, I'm glad that I have no more to share. I am happy enough to let this story become something that just happened. I would be happy if the thoughts going through my mind to be put on paper here were the last thoughts I have of it, although I know that is never going to happen. The last thing Jack ever said about it was that it could have been a lot worse. It was lucky that we didn't get hurt. Yet, seeing that deathless mauling, it fucked me up for months. My thoughts, my sleep, everything. It's one of those images that are burned into your eyes, so every time you blink see a flash of it. I see its face. I see its hand grabbing and releasing the dirt as if that would save it. I know it's messed with Jack too though. I don't think he's gone camping in a long time. I know I never will, but for him, it's something far more important. To change his life like that, yeah, it's got to him. And after some half-hearted attempts to learn more, we still don't know what we found in the river. Thanks a lot for watching the video till the end. Subscribe to our channel Horror in Detail. Drop your opinions/suggestions in the comments section, and like the video as it helps with the YouTube algorithm.